Blessings. Today is the Buddhist holy day, the Uposatha. So earlier today the monks came together to listen to the recitation of their rules, Patimokkha. And we've come together to meditate. We chanted the Paritas, auspicious verses. It's also known as Dhamma Savana Day, as we chanted in the Mangala Sutta. Dhamma Savanang hi Dhammang Karamuttamang. Dhamma Savana means like discussion of the Dhamma, teaching, pondering, questioning the Dhamma. That's something that's auspicious, because that's the way we learn. And the Buddhist teachings are giving us a method, a way to learn about life and how to live more and more without suffering, by showing us what we need to do to eradicate or abandon the causes of suffering, which are considered primarily as internal things. Suffering comes from our wrong thinking, mental states rooted in greed, anger, delusion. Not that there isn't other kinds of suffering in life, or the more external things, but the root cause of everyone's problems is actually internal, in their own mind. But we quite often either don't see that, or we get so caught up in trying to fix the external problems of the world that we forget to look at and learn about the internal ones. But the Buddhist teachings give us this way, this method of study and then practice in order to find out more and find solutions to our suffering. Sometimes it's known as the Tri-Sikha. Sikha means study or learning or training. Tri means three, so 3 areas of learning in Buddhism: Sila, Samadhi and Panya. And these are abbreviations of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the path of practice that leads to the end of suffering. 8 different factors that have to be, again, studied, learned, and then practiced, but summarized as Sila, Samadhi, Panya. And the Buddha always emphasized how all of these aspects have to be practiced together, because they support each other. And for the right results to come from the practice, they all need to be developed. Because sometimes we practice in a way, maybe you might say, is out of balance or lacking in some areas. So we may practice precepts, but not go on to develop meditation, states of samadhi, not to reflect on the Dhamma and gain insight, for example. All 3 areas of training have to be developed. And they both help us to adjust our own internal thinking, views, ways of looking at the world, understanding on the inside, on our mind, on the level of our mind, and then also develop the right attitudes and behavior with the rest of the world, our relationships with other people, with the physical world, so that everything is coming together to support the arising of the right qualities of mind that help us to free our mind from suffering, such as mindfulness, such as wisdom, insight. So, a lot of the teachings the Buddha gave are based around these relationships between body and mind, between different wholesome dhammas, what causes them to arise, what effect they have on us, how they fit into the path, what unwholesome dhammas there are, what they are, how they arise, how they obstruct the path or cause us suffering, how we relate between mind and body, how we relate between ourselves and others. Many, many different teachings on different aspects of life, helping us to look at and learn more about how the process of suffering works, how suffering arises from its different causes. And then, of course, how it can be ended by understanding the causes and changing them or abandoning them. Understanding how different kinds of happiness arise, knowing their advantages but also their drawbacks. It's one of the common ways the Buddha talked is about the advantages and disadvantages of different things. Not everything is sort of straightforward in life. You can have too much of a good thing or not enough of a good thing. Some dhammas you can attach too strongly to them and then they become a cause of suffering. So the Buddha says, say like precepts. You can attach so much to your precepts so tightly without wisdom and understanding that they become harmful. May give rise to conceit and looking down on others who don't keep precepts as well as you think you do, or just make you uptight, stressed, or we can feel that the precepts are a minor part of the practice and ignore them or neglect them and then not realize where we're creating suffering for ourselves or others. So we also have to learn these sort of different aspects, the different ways of reflecting on our behavior, physical behavior, mental behavior, and see what leads to what. And the Buddha emphasized things don't just come randomly out of the blue. There's causes and conditions that lead up to our suffering. It's not just something imposed by some heavenly being or superior being making us suffer. It's not just random out of the blue, but there's causes and conditions. If we're suffering, there's a reason for it. Similarly, when we're peaceful and happy, there's a reason for that too. And again, it's not just destiny or good luck. So all of these things provide the basis for study. And the way of study, the way of learning and training is the Sila, Samadhi, Panya. You see all our teachers, say Ajahn Chah, Luang Por Man, all the meditation masters of Thailand, far too many for me to mention here. These are the ones I know about. Obviously there's meditation masters and enlightened beings in other countries and traditions maybe as well. But the ones I know about, they've all put effort into studying what the Buddha taught, usually first of all. Very occasionally, they practice first, study later, but usually the usual way around is study first, practice later. So even forest monks, meditation monks often have studied the suttas, the Vinaya for sure, occasionally even the Abhidhamma, the third basket of the Tripitaka. In the old days, many of the Tudong monks, the forest monks, would wander not only around the forests of Thailand, which were massive, but also into Laos, Cambodia and Burma, sometimes through Burma all the way to India. But it's quite common for monks to go crisscrossing from the borders of Thailand into Burma. The Burmese people had a lot of faith to support monks. There was a lot of quiet places to practice, a lot of stupas and chedis to practice and inspire the practice. So many monks would wander from the west of Thailand into Burma, what we call Myanmar now. Many teachers commented how Shwetagong Pagoda was a very powerful place to meditate. And even today, many Buddhists in Yangon will go there and meditate, even on the way to work. They'll stop, chant, meditate. And it's always attracted people interested in meditation because it has a very good atmosphere, what you might call a holy atmosphere. But even the forest monks staying in the forest, they'd often spend some time studying with Burmese meditation masters, teachers, and the Burmese tradition relies heavily on scriptural texts such as the Visuddhimagga, the Abhidhamma, and so on. So even many of the forest masters of Thailand would have studied. Even Luang Por Man once wrote a diary based on his Abhidhamma studies from Burma when he spent time there, and many of his students wandered across to Burma, studied with the masters and learnt about the theoretical parts of the Buddhist teachings and found that as a good support in their practice. But none of them stuck there. I mean, the reason we call them meditation masters is because they developed the whole part of the path, all parts of the path together, so Sila, Samadhi and Panya. But based on a foundation of Sila, so for a monk that means Vinaya, for a monastic, for a lay people that might mean 5, 8 precepts, and then study and then learning and then developing mindfulness and meditation objects to develop states of calm and to practice satipatthana and then develop insight and wisdom from that. So when they were practicing meditation or developing, cultivating states of samadhi and insight, it wasn't separate from the rest of the practice. And they'd practiced dana, they'd practiced sila as well, they'd studied as well. Their practice and training was very complete. So they kind of had this kind of solid foundation to their practice which helped in the training in insight. What we tend to do nowadays, because we have so much access to information, endless books. When I first started in Wat Nanachat in Thailand, we had one small bookcase with English language Dhamma books, not many of them. Some of them weren't even true Dhamma, they're kind of barely Dhamma books. Nowadays, not only do we have whole libraries full of books, but we have the internet. Far too much for one person to read in one lifetime. So one danger is sometimes we jump. We want to know the higher Dhamma. Not going to waste time with precepts and dana or even meditation. Don't want to waste time there. It's too difficult. Go straight to the higher teachings, maybe to the Abhidhamma. It's quite common. People have to study the Abhidhamma, maybe before they've meditated. Or just generally the suttas, the theoretical side, philosophical side of Buddhism, which is very interesting and can be very useful for stimulating wisdom and insight. And then if there isn't the other aspects of the practice to balance the mind, sometimes it can lead to a lot of confusion or misunderstanding because the full path is not appreciated. So a very common one is, people read a lot, study a lot, theorize a lot, and then become very disillusioned with the world, with themselves, with even the Dhamma. Because they have got no joy, they become very dry, sometimes very critical. Their critical faculty, their intelligence is well developed, but there's not anything producing much joy or peace. So they just go towards negativity, depression sometimes, never settle down, so a lot of overthinking, restless thinking, because there's no samadhi, and often not much joy. not much dana, not much sila, not much samadhi to provide any kind of sense of well-being or joy. It's very common in the Western world, where we approach Buddhism more from this intellectual background and the study and reading. Often things like precepts, dana, are sort of looked down upon as almost like beginner stuff, kid stuff. But maybe that's a weakness rather than a strength. Sometimes we think it's a strength to jump straight to the top end of the knowledge scale. But maybe there's some weakness there as well. If you jump over some good parts of the practice, then maybe you don't have full appreciation of how to look after your mind. Even the practice of dana, like the Buddha always said, you begin your practice and development of wisdom by practicing dana. Because to practice dana skillfully and properly to bring good results for yourself, for others, you need to think about it. You need to train how to contemplate, how to practice dana effectively for the ending of defilements. Because even practicing dana, charity, generosity, even kindness can have its disadvantage, because it can also stimulate a sense of self, attachment, and in the long run even suffering. Simply because we're practicing with expectations, desires, maybe doing it in a way that we get tired, or just misunderstanding the role of dana in training the mind. One way Ajahn Chah used to say, you practice, say in a monastery where you practice a lot of dana, just looking after the place. He said dana can really just be a simple attitude of how can I help, how can I share? Because of course the details may change from day to day, situation to situation, but having the attitude, how can I help? And you might think, well, what's that got to do with meditation or letting go of attachments or developing penetrating insight into not self? Well, if you develop the attitude, how can I help? That includes yourself. How can I help my mind, this mind, to abandon defilements? That's a form of helping, and your own mind needs to be helped. So it's actually developing a sense of care and attention to oneself, to the environment, to the people around one. And that's what the practice of sharing, helping, or dana is, isn't it? You're adding to the environment, the society, rather than harming it, taking things away from it, destroying it. So the sense of care and attention becomes foremost when you practice dana according to the Buddhist principles. And that flows straight on to the practice of sila, the practice of samadhi, and even insight. Because you wouldn't want your mind to get caught into wrong views. Say, if you really care about your mind, you don't want to attach to wrong views, wrong ways of thinking that just lead to more confusion or more suffering. That would be neglecting your mind in one sense. So even the practice of dana leads all the way to nibbana. Obviously with the other factors of the path together, where it develops that sense of care, attention, caring for yourself, caring for others. Recognizing the importance of caring for oneself and others, not being neglectful, heedless, lazy, you could say, not being complacent, which is another one that Ajahn Chah emphasized over and over again, because in the world, the flow of the world, the flow of society is all about making everything better, more comfortable, more convenient, to have more, to be richer, wealthier. It's always sort of seen as best. The thing is, with comfort, convenience, wealth, we get that kind of happiness, material happiness, which tends to make us very complacent and not so alert to the truth. Whereas sometimes a little bit of difficulty, pain, the shortage of things, a lack of things, can actually heighten our awareness and make us more mindful and investigate the truth more. Dukkha tends to lead to that when we're practicing. Dukkha is our teacher, Ajahn Dukkha. So, the modern equivalent is everyone would love to get a free 1 month holiday in Bali or somewhere. Go and eat the nice food, lie on the beach, soak up the sun. But, you come back after that, you've still got to start again, pick up from where you left off, and maybe on the way you ate too much, you slept too much, you picked up some bad habits on the way. So you come back and maybe things are even harder. Because you weren't careful enough while you're away and you develop these not so good habits. But still the idea always seems attractive, a 1 month holiday somewhere, whatever your choice destination is. Or even further, maybe to be reborn in heaven, where you don't have to do anything. Heaven is a place where nothing happens at all. Where you can just glide around, enjoying no physical pain or discomfort, no hunger, no thirst, and just kind of enjoy life for a few eons or 10,000 years or however long you get. But even the best holiday in heaven doesn't last. You have to come back, and maybe you don't even get a human rebirth when you return. One of the most disturbing things I can remember in Thai society when I lived in Thailand was the news that if you don't offer water or drinks to monks, even if you get to heaven, you'll feel thirsty. People started to panic and offered huge amounts of water. So that year, because everyone was stirred up, going on Bindabat, monks were getting their fingers almost severed by having to carry bags and bags of water bottles, which, 1 bottle is okay, but 5 or 10 becomes torture. You might have to carry 10 bottles of water a few kilometers back to your monastery. I can remember many days I had red fingers from carrying all these heavy bags, because everyone's worried they go to heaven but won't have any water to drink or nothing to drink. Because we all have our idea of heaven. If we haven't reached heaven yet, then we all want our blissful samadhi. We just sit there and just kind of chill. Because that doesn't bring you much wisdom, because you're escaping dukkha but not contemplating dukkha as a cause of suffering. You're just escaping it. That's what we want, or that's our first reaction, isn't it? I want out of here. No dukkha. So Ajahn Chah always used to say, happiness, particularly kama sukha, material happiness, or even just the happiness of a peaceful mind from meditation, there is a danger to it, because it makes you kind of complacent, just sit there, and doesn't necessarily bring you wisdom yet. Still part of the practice, it's not wrong, but you have to work hard to come out of that pleasure, the pleasure of having enough to eat and a sense of contentment and being able to meditate, hear the Dhamma, it's all good. But then you have to come out and contemplate the dukkha of the world, of life, and the causes of dukkha, craving and attachment. If you can just escape craving by your mental holiday in Bali, by going into a state of samadhi, well, why not? Just escape, better than having to contemplate. So sometimes monks who did attain samadhi, so they had skill and they put a lot of effort into that, which is a good thing. As I said, it's not wrong, it's part of the path. But then they'd receive an admonishment from Luang Por Chah. You don't just sit there in samadhi, contemplate. Don't even enter samadhi if you're skilled at it. Contemplate the body, dukkha vedana, the unattractiveness of the body, the disappointments of craving, not getting what you want, getting what you don't want. Contemplate this. Don't just sit there enjoying some peaceful state. is not enough to get enlightened. Dukkha is our best teacher. So particularly on these nights, the Buddhist holy night, you maybe practice, and monks might go all night meditating. And some could do it, they could sit without moving because they had samadhi. So that's a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it's an attainment. But the danger is you stop there. You sit all night, but you're not contemplating because you're just enjoying this peaceful state or trying to maintain the peaceful state as long as possible. Ajahn Chah said, come out of that peaceful state, contemplate the pain in your legs, the tiredness of the body, the unattractiveness of this human body. It gets tired, it gets ill, doesn't look so good in certain parts. Contemplate things. Don't just sit there stuck in samadhi. Sometimes they call samadhi where you just get stuck in a kind of dull, numb state. You may have developed some mindfulness, but then you just close down. They call that tree stump samadhi. Like a tree that's been cut off, never to grow again. It doesn't lead anywhere, nothing more sprouts out of it. Wisdom has to come from contemplation. Contemplating, looking, learning from dukkha. That's where real wisdom, panya, the third of these trisikha, the 3 areas of study, that's where wisdom comes from. Understanding the Four Noble Truths completely. What is suffering, its cause, but then how to abandon it. So to understand the cause of suffering, you've got to recognize craving, attachment for what it is. So you have to see it. Develop some calm and then look back at where the anger comes from, the worry, the restlessness, the desire, the fear, the doubt. All these things, where do they come from? What do they do to the mind, and how to abandon them? When mindfulness improves, then all these things may be seen as just mental states, conditions of mind. And they all have one thing in common. They arise, pass away. If mindfulness is more strong from the samadhi and from the practice of mindfulness, then you can contemplate well. Whatever's arising, you will see it arise and cease. So when mindfulness becomes stronger and you're practicing sitting, walking, trying to maintain mindfulness through the different postures, maybe over longer periods of time, everything just becomes like ripe mangoes, as Ajahn Chah said. When you practice this Noble Eightfold Path and things are coming together, the sila is there, the mind is solid, comfortable because of sila, not because of just getting a lot of pleasant feelings from good food and good accommodation or whatever. When you have the happiness of sila, the steadiness of mind from sila, the mindfulness of sila, the wisdom of sila, and then you practice mindfulness, develop some calm and stillness from samadhi, and then you contemplate, everything is seen as it is. Every mental state arises, ceases, and you just see it as it is. It arises, passes away, it's just that much. He said it's like you have a friend who goes up a mango tree and they're just shaking the tree and dropping the mangoes down to you. You're on the ground, you don't even have to go up the tree. You just carry a basket or something, you look up, see where your friend is and wait, and they'll drop the ripe mangoes down to you. In a few minutes you've got a whole basket full of mangoes. Those mangoes are equivalent to just seeing desires, attachments arise, pass away, seeing them as they are. They're just that much. If mindfulness and insight is really strong, even strong emotions, strong anger, strong lust, strong fear, strong worry and anxiety, is still the same. It just arises and ceases. There's nothing there. Just mangoes. But to get to that point where you can do that, then all the factors of the path work together. We need the dana, the sila, the samadhi, the panya working together, and then the mind is in its best state to see, to know. Samadhi alone not enough. Even panya, just listening to the Dhamma, learning the words is not enough. Sila is not enough. They have to all work together. So we have to watch out this wish just to know the Dhamma, from the books, from the talks, the higher Dhamma, know all the states of samadhi, all the levels of insight, get it all sorted so we can recite it, say it, but then haven't actually practiced it. It's not quite the same. As, again, another famous comment of Luang Por Chah is, everyone just wants to come and talk about jhana, but nobody knows how to clean the toilets. This practice is a complete practice. You clean the toilets and you practice jhana and you develop insight all together. Not one is more important than the other. You might say you can't have one without the other. And jhanas are fine, but you also have to clean the toilets and you have to contemplate, the dirt and the smell of the toilets. So that's a super, isn't it? Even cleaning toilets, you can get enlightened. There's one monk who's famous for having cleaned the toilets and gone to the toilet and he became enlightened. So even that. At this time of year, many of the monks are on retreat. I remember one year I was on retreat. My kuti up in the forest, kuti number 10, the first brick kuti we built here. And, is it number 10? No, kuti number 9. Stayed there. We had, in those days, and still some of the kutis, you just have a pit toilet, a hole in the ground. Rain or shine, day or night. You go out there, if it's raining, you hold an umbrella and you do your business, and maybe there's a wallaby bouncing by or a wombat comes by and you just do your business. But when you are up there at your kuti a lot on retreat and you use that one toilet all the time, then what I found, and I think other monks have found too, is that actually after a few days you end up with maggots in your toilet pit because there's so much going in there. So you spend your retreat observing maggots at work, eating up the fecal matter and whatever in your toilet. So not a very pleasant practice, but a very useful practice to contemplate. You might have been walking meditation peaceful, sitting meditation secluded, peaceful, not bothered by anyone because you're on retreat. But you go to the toilet, you've still got to contemplate the maggots doing their thing there. But that's truth, isn't it? That's life. Whatever goes in one end comes out the other end as excrement, urine, goes into the toilet pit, just becomes the food of the maggots. Maybe the maggots even think it's a good place to be. Like that story from the text, the two friends, one was reborn as a deva, one was reborn as a maggot in the toilet pit. Each one was satisfied with their lot. But the deva, perhaps the mind slightly more refined than the maggot down in the excrement, felt sorry for his friends. They came down to visit. He said, I can find a way to get you up, be reborn in a deva loka, nice and happy and pleasant. But the maggot said, no, I like it here. This is where I like it best. I don't want to go anywhere else. That's the danger with delusion, isn't it? You get so used to what you're used to that you don't even consider the possibility there's something better. So Luang Por Chah said, keep contemplating, develop the sila, the happiness of sila, the dana, practice meditation, develop the happiness of samadhi, but also contemplate. Don't forget to contemplate the dukkha and let go of the causes of the dukkha. So maybe I'll leave you with these reflections tonight.